Let's dive right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're opening the dossier on the 1956 Suez Crisis, investigating how a conflict over a single waterway dismantled the old European imperial order and officially crowned the United States and the Soviet Union as the new global superpowers. We absolutely have to start with this dramatic reality. In just a few weeks, two of the world's greatest empires discovered they were no longer in charge. The illusion of dominance was completely shattered. And this didn't happen over decades. It happened in a matter of days. Here is our agenda for today. 1. The world's strategic waterway. 2. Nasser nationalizes the Canal. 3. The secret protocol of Sevres. 4. Invasion and military campaign. 5. Superpowers intervene and withdraw. And finally, 6. The end of empires.
Starting off with Section 1, the world's strategic waterway.
Okay, so originally constructed back in 1869 by French engineer Ferdinand de Lesseps, using Egyptian forced labor, by the way, this canal had become the absolute jugular vein of the British Empire's economy. By 1956, it was carrying 2/3 of Europe's entire oil supply right from the Persian Gulf. For Britain and France, losing control of this crucial choke point was just completely unthinkable. Moving to Section 2, Nasser nationalizes the canal. Now, here's the catalyst that set the whole thing in motion. Egypt plans to build the massive Aswan High Dam. But on July 19, 1956, the US and the UK suddenly pull their financial support for it. This was basically a move to punish Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser for his non-aligned stance and his recent Soviet arms deals. But Nasser, a highly charismatic military officer who had just overthrown the Egyptian monarchy, well, he doesn't back down. He sees this as blatant economic blackmail, and he decides to hit back hard. So on July 26, Nasser gives this incredibly defiant, historic speech in Alexandria. He literally uses a code word, mentioning the name de Lesseps, and boom, Egyptian forces instantly take over the canal's offices. He nationalizes the Suez Canal Company to use its lucrative tolls to fund his dam. This was a wildly popular move across the Arab world, but it was a direct, fatal blow to British and French colonial dominance. Which brings us to Section 3, the secret protocol of Sevres. Let's look at the motives here, because they are fascinating. British Prime Minister Anthony Eden viewed Nasser as this massive existential threat, like an Arab Mussolini trying to destroy their Middle East control and oil routes. France, on the other hand, just wanted to stop Nasser from funding and arming the FLN anti-colonial rebels in Algeria. To the French, Nasser's pan-Arab nationalism and the Algerian rebellion were practically the exact same problem. Driven by this absolute panic, Britain and France hold highly classified meetings with Israel at a villa in Sevres, France. This secret tri-nation collusion was kept entirely off the books from the United States and NATO. Today, it's fully documented in historical archives and academic journals, but at the time, it was a massive, desperate conspiracy formed in the shadows. And here is their wild 3-step plan. Step 1, Israel launches a huge military attack on Egypt. Step 2, Britain and France issue a totally fake, pre-planned ultimatum demanding both sides step back. Step 3, when Egypt inevitably refuses, Anglo-French forces intervene militarily under the disguise of protecting the canal as neutral peacekeepers. It was a total masterclass in deception. Section 4, Invasion and Military Campaign. This whole thing plays out at breakneck speed. On October 29th, Israeli forces rapidly invade the Sinai Peninsula. The very next day, Britain and France drop their staged ultimatum. By November 5th and 6th, Anglo-French paratroopers are dropping directly into Port Said at the Canal Zone. But by November 6th, extreme international pressure forces a sudden ceasefire. The British Foreign Office summed it up perfectly in November 1956, stating, "The military operation was a success, but the political operation was a disaster. We won the war, but lost the peace." Sure, the 3 invading nations executed their tactical military objectives with total professional competence, but they completely and fundamentally miscalculated how the rest of the world was going to react. And that leads us to Section 5, Superpowers intervene and withdraw. In a super rare moment of Cold War agreement, both the US and the Soviet Union fiercely opposed the invasion. The United States demands an immediate withdrawal to prevent a wider war. President Eisenhower was absolutely furious about being lied to by his own allies just days before an election. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union threatens to literally launch rocket attacks on London and Paris to defend Egypt. Suddenly, Britain and France are trapped between nuclear annihilation and the absolute fury of their closest ally. But you know what the actual decisive blow was? It wasn't military at all. It was economic. President Eisenhower used the threat of a $143 million loan waiver to intentionally trigger a run on the British pound sterling. Facing immediate economic ruin, Prime Minister Eden really had no choice but to accept the ceasefire. Just like that, financial leverage brought a great empire to its knees.
Section 6. The End of Empires. To resolve the immediate conflict on the ground, the international community created the UNEF, the United Nations Emergency Force. This was the very first large-scale UN peacekeeping force, deployed specifically to supervise the ceasefire and replace the withdrawing colonial troops. It totally changed the playbook for how the UN handles global security.
For Britain and France, it was a humiliating exit. This withdrawal represented a total shift in international authority. It legally and visibly confirmed to the entire world that these old European empires could no longer act independently on the world stage without an American permission slip. The long-term geopolitical consequences here are massive. European imperial power is permanently broken. Global decolonization heavily accelerates. And even though Egypt suffered heavy military losses, Nasser emerges as the undisputed Arab nationalist hero who kept the Canal. Finally, power in the Middle East shifts directly to the US and USSR. If you want to understand modern Middle Eastern power dynamics, this crisis is literally ground zero. As we close out this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, provocative question to think about. Considering the secret plots, the swift invasions, and that unprecedented superpower smackdown, was the Suez Crisis the moment the age of European empires truly came to an end?